Shabbat shalom, everyone. Welcome. Don, so good to be with you on this
Great
Friday
to be with you,
evening.
Beau. Indeed. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat
It's Shabbat
Hagadol.
Hagadol, isn't it? It's the great Sabbath right before Passover.
Absolutely. That's the Shabbat when the rabbi's meant to give his lengthiest sermon of the year. So we should all be done in time for Seder tomorrow with our service this evening.
That's exactly. We're going to try our best to do that, Beau. Yeah.
We'll begin this evening joining together in the words of Hine Matov. How good, how wonderful it is that we can sit together yet apart as we welcome and celebrate Shabbat together.
That's right. Let's all sing and dance together, bring in the joy of Shabbat. Hine Matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, la 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 la. Hine matov, la 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 la. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad.
We welcome Shabbat with Shabbat light, with the lighting of our Shabbat candles, with Kiddush, and with Motzi.
Let's join together. We light our Shabbat candles together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Beautiful. Now we join in Kiddush. Let's all grab our cups, lift them up full of joy, and join together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lemase v'reishit ki hu yom tekilah lemikra'e kodesh zecher yitziat mitzrayim kivanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen. L'chaim, everyone. And now, the blessing over the challah, which we will not be saying for a while, right? So
It's funny, Don. I said I shared this morning with the first graders that, from my perspective, the biggest letdown of the entire year is the Shabbat that falls during Pesach. So not this Shabbat, but next Shabbat, and particularly this year because it comes virtually at the end of Pesach, when we stand at the end of the service ordinarily and we make Kiddush. And then we make motzi and we lift up the challah cover, and all we think about is how delicious a warm, freshly baked challah would taste. And there's a stack of flat matzah there.
Oh, there it is. Still,
right? So, for one more Shabbos, we rejoice and enjoy freshly baked challah.
Indeed. Let's all join together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom. So in just a moment, we'll rejoice and welcome Shabbat angels with the words of Shalom Aleichem. Don, I'm going to put you on the spot, if I may, because I know there's a little midrash, a little story that I've heard you tell so beautifully about these Shabbat angels and sort of how it's meant to play out. And so maybe you'll indulge me and share that with us as we move into Shalom Aleichem.
Absolutely. The teaching, the Hasidic teaching, is that on Shabbat, a good angel and an evil angel visit all of our homes. And if the evil angel sees that the home has not been prepared for Shabbat, says, may it be again next week. But if the good angel sees that the home has been prepared for Shabbat, says, may it be again so next week. So we hope the good angel gets to vote tonight for each and every one of us. And now the words of Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Barachuni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seidechem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei עליון ממלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא הקדוש ברוך הוא הקדוש ברוך הוא.
The ancient mystics in Tzfat imagined that on Friday evening as the sun sets, that Shabbat arrives into our lives and into our world, much the way that a bride arrives into the room at a wedding ceremony with that magic and that awe-inspiring majesty. And they penned a poem. Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz penned an acrostic poem called Lecha Dodi that draws these metaphors between a wedding and Shabbat, that Shabbat is the wedding between God and the Jewish people. And so we'll join together in these words of Lecha Dodi.
Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. 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 שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתהילה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי, אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום, עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, תוך אמוני עם סגורה. בואי חלה, בואי חלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, פני שבת נקבלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת קהלה, P'nei Shabbat nekabla.
This is the point in the service when ordinarily I would invite us all to rise for the Amidah, and by all means, rise for the Baruch Hu, and by all means, if you're sitting on the couch, you're sitting at your desk, and you feel like rising, please do, or otherwise, as Rabbi Eshel has become fond of saying, just sit up a little bit straighter as we join together in our call to prayer in the Baruch Hu.
La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. La 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai Hamevorach. We join together now, one voice, as we recite the Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Vaed. We continue together in the chanting of the V'ahavta. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha uvelechtecha v'derech uveshochbecha uvekumecha ukshartam leot al yadecha vehayu letotafot beinenecha uchtavtam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני Adonai Elohechem.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Believe it or not, if you haven't yet started your cooking for Pesach, God forbid you haven't started your shopping yet for Pesach, tomorrow night we'll all be gathered around our Seder tables as we retell this ancient story of the Exodus, a story that we know so well, perhaps one of the most famous stories, most famous narratives in the entire Torah. And many years ago, when I was a student rabbi, I had a student pulpit in Yuma, Arizona. I would fly to Yuma one weekend a month and on the high holy days, and as I'm sometimes fond of saying, would pretend to be the rabbi, knowing just about this much more than the lovely, wonderful folks I had the privilege of spending time with. And around that same time, some academic research was published in a book that suggested the fact that there's little to no archaeological evidence to support the fact that 600,000 Israelites were ever enslaved in Egypt, much less that they were ever freed, or that they wandered for 40 years in the Sinai Peninsula. And during our Saturday morning Torah study with a very small but dedicated group of learners, I shared this new research that I just learned days before in my Bible class. And I asked the group if that mattered. If it mattered if the story was just a story, if it hadn't really happened. And a 93-year-old woman, without missing a beat, looked at me across the circle of chairs, straight in the eye, and said to me, "No, Rabbi, it happened for me. It makes no difference. It happened for me." And that is exactly what Pesach is here to remind us of. You see, Pesach isn't really about our ancestors. It's about us. We sing Avadim Chayinu, that we were slaves and now we were free. Not our ancestors were slaves and they were freed. The Haggadah instructs us, Bechol Dor Vador, that in every generation, in each and every generation, we are to see ourselves as if it were us who came out of Egypt. But that's lovely, it's poetic. Most of us haven't experienced slavery, or have we? Many of us know that the Hebrew word for Egypt is Mitzrayim, and many of us know that that means these tight, these narrow places. Our ancestors came out of the narrow, difficult, and challenging places. And whatever our take on the factual basis of the Exodus is, on the historicity of the story, each and every one of us knows narrow places, difficult and challenging places. This week, we, of course, are particularly aware of the narrow, difficult, and challenging places that our Asian American brothers and sisters are in as they suffer the effects of prejudice, of racism, of xenophobia. And of course, we think about those in Atlanta and Boulder who have suffered so much pain and loss this week and are also feeling the tightness, the narrowness of that grief and that loss. And so as we prepare for Pesach tomorrow, we remember our own slavery, our own struggles, our own Mitzrayim, our narrow places. And we think of those in the world who are suffering in their own Egypt, because enslaved in ways large and small, in the words of Dr. King, no one is free until we all are free. Chag Sameach and Shabbat Shalom. And so in the spirit of our freedom and the freedom that our ancestors celebrated when they left the narrowness of Egypt, we join together now in these celebratory words of Mi Chamocha.
Mi Chamocha bailim Adonai, Mi Chamocha netar b'kodesh, Navrat dirot, Osefel, Malchutecha ra'ut panecha, Hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Malchutecha ra'ut panecha, Hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, la 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. Seri Anu Amru Adonai Molo Yolam Yolam Ra'eh. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. من همار كيف أدوناي את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל אמן. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, בני ישראל, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים, את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השני שבת, שבת, שבת. וביום השביעי שבת, שבת, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את את השבת, לעשות את השבת לתורתם ברית עולם.
We come now to the Amidah, which this evening we'll participate in silently, either with the words of a prayer book if you happen to have one nearby, or the words of our hearts. This is time and moments for us to each turn inward, to turn our thoughts inward, reflect on that which matters most to us, that which we want to carry with us into this Shabbat, into this Pesach, and into the week ahead.
יהיו לרצון אמרפי, יהיו לרצון אמרפי, והגיון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Only the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart, be acceptable before you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Ose shalom bimromah, u'yase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, Amen.
We take a few moments amidst our joy and our celebration on this Shabbat evening to think of loved ones and family members, members of our community who are in need of wholeness, in need of healing. And so I'll invite you at this time to call to mind those who you know in your life, in your family, in your community, who are in need of wholeness, in need of healing. Hold them in your hearts now, as together we offer these healing words of the Mishaberach.
Mishaberach avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Mishaberach imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer. hear our prayer and bless us as well. Bless us with the power of your healing. Bless us with the power of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Mi sheberach avotenu, Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Mi sheberach imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, Rachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
Just a few brief announcements before we begin to conclude our service this evening. As obviously we've mentioned, and hopefully most of us are aware, Passover begins tomorrow evening. Lots of offerings this next 8 days. We have the Women's Seder, which will be back on Zoom and is being done in partnership with University Synagogue Sisterhood. And tomorrow night, on the first night of Pesach, Rabbi Nanis and Cantor Gurney have a helpful and engaging video you can play to walk you through the Seder. And the second night of Seder, Sunday evening, I believe it's at 5 o'clock, Rabbi Eshel, Rabbi Nickerson, and Cantor Peacock have a fun-filled family Seder experience that you can tune into with your families. So the best way to make sure you know everything that's going on and everything that so many of us are working so hard to put out there to keep us all engaged, to celebrate Pesach together, is to follow the Wilshire Boulevard Temple on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, if you don't already. Check our website. It's on YouTube Live as well. And the last thing I'll say is that if you're not a member of Wilshire Boulevard Temple, if you're enjoying everything you see tonight, if you're enjoying our classes during the week, and you're not a part of the Wilshire Boulevard Temple family, I hope you consider becoming a part of the Temple family, because we'd really love to have you. And the last thing I'll say is that you obviously see Cantor Gurney, and you see myself here, and you see others of us during the week on screen teaching and leading. But there's a whole crew and a whole team of people who are behind the camera, making sure that we look good and we sound good, and that this all happens. And we are incredibly devoted to them, and we are in their debt and grateful for them. So thank you to everyone who helps make all of this happen each and every week. With that, we'll turn our thoughts to sacred moments of memory, to moments of Kaddish, as we recall loved ones, family members, members of our community who are no longer with us. We begin by thinking of those for whom we're in a period of Shloshim, those who have died during these past 30 days, as we call to mind Charmaine Blatt, Hugh Fate, Frank Feeder, Doris Fink, Doug Gerson, Judy Carmon, Yusuf Mahboubianfard, Yale Mishkanian, Michael Portis, Honey Schulman, and Margalit Zadok. We also think of those who lost their lives in Boulder and Atlanta this past week. Trey Lona, Bart Kowick, Suzanne Fountain, Terry Leiker, Kevin Mahoney, Lynn Murray,
Ricky Olds, Denny Strong, Nevin Stansick, Officer Eric Talley, Jody Waters, Daoyu Fang, Hyun Jung Grant, Suncha Kim, Paul Andre Michaels, Soon Chung Park, Shiogi Tan, Delana Ashley Yun, and Yong Yu. We add to their names the names of those whose yahrzeits occurred during this past week: Goldie Atler, Eli Moses Addy, Leonard Scott Barkan, Vernon Beck, Esther Bender, Ida Bernfeld, Adelie Bliston, Julian Burton, Peter Cohen, William Avram Kopin, Sidney Davidson, Arkady Ediovich, Ellen Emmett, Harry Fagot, Munish Feinberg, Jack Feldman, Robin Feldman, Isaac Abraham Fogelman, Beth Fried, John Gertis, Fred Stanley Goldman, George Goldstein, Donald Greenberg, Martin Grover, Ambrose Holzman, David Howard, Beverly Jacobs, Leon Janot, Sophie Jasny, Joan Kamenow, Stephen Karp, William J. Kend, Al Kleiner, Doug Klein, Robert Klein, Marlene Cohen, Robert Costner, Bernard Landau, Beulah Levine, Rachel Levitt, William Levitt, Cecile Levy, Ida Lieberman, Saul Lieber, Gilbert Linheim, Sandy Linka, Minette London, Marjorie Gold, Maggot, Louis Mayers, Patrick John McCormack, Dorothy Miller, Rosanna Mischel, Jerome Munchin, Lita Naim, Leonard Nannis, Edith Newman, Harry Perlman, Edgar Phillips, Sarita Pierce, Morton Pullman, Louis Reisman, Elizabeth Resnick, Sanford Rieger, Ava Roman, Abe Rosenthal, Esther Rosen, Helen Cohen Rosenblum, Susan Joan Rosenfeld, Bernard Roth, Dina Rothenberg, Josephine Hartfeld Samuels, Sarah Schrimmer, Julian Sorority, Jack Soberkleit, Greta Solomon, Ida Sosnow, Ruby Gantz Springle, Walter Stern, Aurelia Martinez Tapia, Rosalie Turner, Stanley Wallens, Deverell Weiss, Richard Weissman, Stephen Weiss, and Milton Wolfe. We also call to mind those to whom we are grateful but do not know, those who have fallen defending the flags of the United States of America, the State of Israel, and all the innocent victims of senseless terrorism and violence all over the world. Zichronam livracha, may their memories always be for a blessing.
We join together in the mourner's Kaddish. Yigadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba.
Amen.
Ve'alma divrach chiluteh v'yamlich malchuteh. B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala v'zman kari v'imru. Amen.
Amen.
Yehei shemei Rabba mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dikudsha berichu. Ve'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Ta'amiran be'alma ve'imru. Amen. Yehi shalom rabba min shemaya. Ve'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom bimromav. Hu yaseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen.
עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומה, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועכו ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועכו ישראל. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועכו ישראל. 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 ואמרו amen.
Shabbat Shalom, Don. That's beautiful.
Shabbat shalom. Thank you so much. Great to be with you.
It almost feels like we're in the shackle at Irma's.
That's right.
We've got Chris Harden behind you. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thanks for being with us this evening. Hag Sameach. Happy Passover.